Today we're discussing the CIAA, Sue Myrick, and gay rights in Charlotte. I'm Carlton Hargrove, and this is 282. Thank you, folks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of 282. Once again, we've got a great discussion coming your way, and we've gathered another great panel of guests. And as always, we're joined by 282 producer Jarvis Holliday, who is up in, last week I called it the Eagle's Nest, but this week I'm calling it the Owl's Nest. What's up, Jarvis?
The Owl's Nest.
The Owl's Nest.
So does that mean I should be hanging upside down?
Yes, you can. Or say who or something like that.
Well, I hope we'll get some who's, what's, and whens, and have people tweeting us. Follow us on Twitter. Follow the show on Twitter at 282TV. And if you find some of our conversations interesting, tweet your comments using hashtag 282TV, and we hope to have a lively discussion.
Thank you, Jarvis. Thank you from the Owl's Nest. Trademark, Carlton Hargrove. Okay, so let's get to the guests, and we'll get to the conversation. First up on the end, we've got Anthony Lindsay, who is the chairman of the local organizing committee for CIAA.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Up next, we've got Matt Comer, who is the Director of Communications for Campus Pride. All right. And lastly, but not least, we've got Madeline McCauley, who is a blogger, and you got your own blog. And what's the name of it again?
Faith, Hope, and Politics.
Faith, Hope, and Politics. I wonder what that's about. Okay, so let's just jump right into conversation. Anthony, we're going to start with CIAA. We're
Great.
a little more than a week away from CIAA, from all the festivities starting. Everybody's getting excited.
Yes.
And as we know, there's a lot of official events going on. There's a lot of unofficial events. In fact, there are hundreds, Madeline and Matt, I don't know if you guys keep up with this, but there are hundreds, I'm not even exaggerating.
That's true.
Hundreds of parties going on from like Thursday, Wednesday to Sunday, right?
That's right.
It's too much to do. Jarvis and I were talking about it's too much. It's like party overload.
It's difficult to keep up with everything.
It's
that's
difficult
for sure.
to keep up. So,
Yeah.
One of the first things I want to ask you about this is how, from an official capacity, how does CIAA feel about all these unofficial parties taking place?
Well, I think they're excited to see that the community has really embraced the tournament and found different ways to keep people engaged. So I would expect that it's a great thing for them to continue to see more activities happening, because the more activities happen, the more people are inclined to come. And so that's what we really want to do, is provide people a good opportunity to come and check out the CIAA, not just because we know there's a lot of parties,
Right.
but also because there's some great basketball to be played there.
Yes.
And we want to get people exposed to the educational institutions that are part of the CIAA, which is really the main focus of the tournament.
Well, the interesting thing that Jarvis and I were talking about is the tournament, of course, is the centerpiece of the whole week.
Right.
And people come for the tournament, but most people, there are a lot of people who don't even know a tournament is probably taking place.
There are probably some of those, yes.
But that said, if you took the tournament out of the city, nobody would show up.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tournament is clearly the centerpiece of the event, but there's a long-standing history for the tournament. So there are a loyal set of followers, fans, who follow that tournament wherever it goes. So they're looking forward to seeing the tournament. It's a great opportunity for people to reunite and to rekindle friendships from college, and for people to meet and have an opportunity to spend time together where they otherwise might not. So there's that component of it. But I think a lot of folks are also excited about the fact that they get to come to a city like Charlotte and experience the city as well.
Right.
So there's a dual draw. Everybody wants to come and see the basketball game and see the tournament, but there are a lot of folks who enjoy coming to experience the city of Charlotte.
But CIAA's, they're not upset about the money and attention being diverted into another direction. There's no malice or anything.
I don't believe that they feel that way about the private events that take place that help support the tournament.
Right.
Again, it's really a sort of a symbiotic relationship if you think about it, because without those events, there'd be very little for people to do.
Right.
So what would they do for the rest of the time when there was no basketball play?
True.
What would they be doing, during those times when we're trying to figure out whether or not this is the right place to go and visit? Do I want to spend my week in some place where there's nothing to do?
Right.
So I think that it really works well together, and folks who are coming here now for the 7th time. Some people may be coming for the first time, But I think there are a lot of folks who are returning that are, again, those kind of fans that follow the tournament and who also want to come and experience the city of Charlotte. So that's a great part of the tournament.
Well, Matt, I wanted to ask you, tens and tens of thousands of people come to CIAA and really kind of flood the city with people. And I wonder, what has your relationship been with CIAA? Have you attended any of the events? I'm sure there's something for everybody.
I am
You caught in the traffic?
I am a self-admitted non-sports guy. I think my parents put me in T-ball, or they tried to put me in T-ball when I was younger. But
Me too,
the most exciting thing about CIAA or any of these other major events that come is that you really do get to see the city come to life. And you mentioned these parties. I think if you have a successful event, if you have an event that people are proud of, that makes them proud of their city, then you're going to see people get involved. And I think for me, that's what I look forward to when CIAA comes around.
Cool. Now, Madeline, I don't know if you've had a chance to really kind of see CIAA in action as you have, traversed the city. What are your thoughts as a blogger about CIAA?
Well, regardless of the sports and all of the parties, it brings great revenue to the city.
Yes.
That's an amazing aspect.
A lot of
it.
money.
Yes, and we should encourage things like this to come to Charlotte because it brings name recognition along with money to all of our local businesses, the malls, and it's really a great thing for Charlotte.
Cool. Well, Jarvis, do you have anything for us over there?
Yes. Kind of a shameless plug for both Carlton and I, because Carlton and I each are among several media that are covering the tournament locally. I know Carlton is covering it for QCityMetro.com. I'm covering it for CharlotteMagazine.com. And just to kind of add to one of the things that young Madeline pointed out here is that it does bring a lot of revenue. And as Anthony pointed out, we did a by the numbers piece, and according to the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority and CIAA, CIAA in 2011 had a $44.3 million estimated economic impact, and that's just over the span of 1 week. So there's a lot of money in the city in 1 week. And to just emphasize the events that are going on, I want to make sure that people do know, in addition to all the parties and events, the CIAA puts on a fan experience at the Charlotte Convention Center Friday through Sunday, March 2nd through 4th. It's a free event all day. You have concerts performing. You have people doing cooking demonstrations. Yolanda Adams, we broadcast on morning show. There's a lot of great events going on. And a couple of quick tweets. When we asked, what are you most looking forward to? At ML Duckett said she's looking forward to meeting Estelle, who is one of the artists performing at the fan experience at the convention center, and hearing her dish her new CD. But not so much of a fan at Lindsay E said neither. She's getting the HE double hockey sticks out of town.
Okay. Well, one of the big things is there's a lot of sort of celebrities coming in town. There's some big ones and some little ones. Diddy is coming in town, so this is my chance to really get my record contract like I've really been wanting. Yeah. And then Ice-T's coming in town too. So we can talk about our gangster rap past. But Anthony, I want to ask you, what is one event that you feel like people definitely need to check out while they come in town?
Well, it's hard to pin down one thing, Carlton, but
I want to pin you down.
Yeah, he talked about the fan experience on Friday, which is a really great experience. But then you also have the McDonald's Super Saturday that's going to be all day Saturday that's free to the public as well in the convention center. In the Time Warner Cable Arena. So there are a number of things. The social that's going to be happening on Friday night for the Coaches Social, which is featuring the Manhattans.
Oh, wow.
Saturday night, we've got the legendary OJs performing as part of the CIAA's 100th anniversary celebration. So there's just a number of things. There are going to be skate parties that are going to be happening. All those things are going to be very important. But I think the other thing I wanted to highlight here is that on Wednesday, we're doing what's called Education Day. Mm-hmm. And this is the third year that we've actually introduced middle school students to exposure about college.
Okay.
And so we focused on middle school students who may not otherwise have been exposed to college opportunities or may not have had a chance to look at college as a possible option for themselves. But we want to bring them in and expose them to what it's like to interact with college-level students, to interact with some of the instructors. And we're going to have NASA again for the third year, actually doing a presentation where they'll actually get to meet an astronaut and talk to that astronaut and learn about science, technology, math, and engineering. So there's a lot more than just the parties that go on here that are taking place that are really beneficial to folks who come out and check out the tournament.
All right. Well, hey, sounds very exciting. I look forward to it.
Great.
And I will be at all the events, education and parties.
That's good.
We're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about another subject. We actually are going to talk about the departure of Sue Myrick right now. And I want to get you in on this conversation. And, you know, one of the things about you, and I don't know how you feel about, people don't like to have their age mentioned, but you are, how old are you?
16.
I think that's kind of a big deal, right? I'm 16 too. So, you know, we're, you know, twins. But anyway, I want to start with you talking about Sue Myrick. Sue announced a few weeks ago that she's not seeking re-election. She's a U.S. representative. And she is not, and her leaving and deciding not to pursue another, another term has left the election season in kind of a frenzy. Lots of people talk about running. Jim Pendergraft threw his name in the hat. There, Bill James may consider it. Even some Democrats considering running. But one thing I want to ask you is, and I want to go around, but I'm gonna start with you. What are your feelings about Sue Myrick? What do you think about her as an elected official? How do you think she did?
Well, I come from her district.
Okay,
I
the
know
District
Sue.
9,
Yeah,
9th District, 9th
9.
District, okay.
And I know Sue.
Oh, do you?
She
Okay.
is an amazing lady.
Hey, Sue.
Yes. She's an amazing lady. I love her strong will, and she's very passionate about all of the work that she does.
Okay.
And she's very strong on immigration, which is very necessary.
Okay, all right. Well, Matt, what about you? What are your feelings about the job that Sue Myrick did while she was in office?
You know, Sue Myrick has been a landmark in this area and in the city for a long time, and she's done some really great work on a lot of issues. But she's also been a little divisive on many issues, especially when it comes to gay and lesbian people or immigrants. I guess it kind of depends on your perspective, whether you think it's strong on immigration or divisive on immigration.
Right.
She's certainly been a lightning rod.
Anthony, do you have any thoughts about Sue?
Well, we're on different sides of the politics, but you know, I think that she has been committed to her own personal beliefs in what she's been standing for in office. We don't always agree, Sue and I, on specific issues, but I think overall she's been very steady. You kind of knew where she was going to land on issues. You knew where she stood, and so it wasn't sort of this case of not knowing what to expect from Sue. So,
Right.
So we kind of all followed that.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, I read a story in the Charlotte Observer about her, and I read a story in Creative Loafing about her departure. Very different stories, you know. And I think the Observer one was really kind of nice. You know, they mentioned that maybe that there was some controversy that she ignited, and the Creative Loafing one maybe mentioned one good thing that she did. But I mean, she was, you know, I gotta say, she kind of was thought of as kind of a strange character. With the whole coffee pot thing, where, you know, like there was talk about her getting messages from a coffee pot, and then the whole thing about her, the fear mongering that she did while she was in office, talking about there were Al-Qaeda people in Mexico, and that I mean, she was a very, I don't want to downplay the fact that she was a very, you know, bizarre character sometimes, you know what I mean? And to get a new person in that spot, are we looking for somebody just like that again, or are we looking for somebody new this time, or with a new way of thinking?
Well, I think it's inevitable to have another Republican in this office. The
Right.
district is very Republican. It always has been.
True.
So
But there's some Democrats that want to run for it.
there are very few. They don't fare very well in the polls.
Okay.
In my opinion, it'll probably be Jim Pendergraft. Just looking at the GOP precinct meeting last week, I mean, he took the votes completely.
And he's pretty much like Sue. I mean, especially on the immigration issue. He's very, you know, he's one of the big proponents of the 287G and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, though. I wonder if you can get a moderate Democrat to run, you know, would there be a hope to kind of, I don't know. I wonder how does Sue and people like Jim reflect on the people that live in that district? Is it a good representation of how people feel?
Sue Myrick is one. She has been an amazing representative. She comes home and visits with the people all the time. And I think the person who aligns himself with Sue the most will win the election.
Okay. Matt, now you were talking about her in regards to gay, lesbian issues. And I kind of wonder, do you think for that district, do you think there's any hope of getting somebody in there who's a little more progressive?
You know, Representative Myrick has been in office for a long, long time, and the nation and this state and the city have changed since she was first elected. And there are some moderate Republicans who are among the 9 or so Republicans who might run for the seat. And I don't think that the 9th District has been excused from the change that has happened. And so having a moderate Republican in there who can treat, in particular, gay and lesbian citizens with some modicum of respect and dignity will be a great change for the city and for the district.
Jarvis, you have something for us, I see.
Yes, I do. Candidate filing actually opened last Monday, so it opened a week ago. And it's only open for 2 weeks, so people who are interested in running for public office have until February 29th to file. But of course, a lot of candidates knew for months, such as former Mayor Pat McCrory, who's running for North Carolina governor. They knew for months they were going to run, so they were ready to file on opening day. Whereas others in the Democratic Party who were surprised by Governor Perdue stepping down and the Republican Party surprised by Sue Myrick stepping down are having to kind of scramble to get their campaigns together and be ready to file by the 29th. And according to the Charlotte Observer, there are at least 30 North Carolina lawmakers that are stepping down. So this is going to be one of the largest elections in recent history because of the lack of incumbents. And the Observer also published an article on Friday saying that more than 300 Mecklenburg County Party activists showed up to a recent meeting that typically would only have a few dozen people. So they are really rallying around this, and, quote, Obama is a big motivator. And to read a tweet from one of our followers, at Nakram HD, when we asked why do we think so many incumbents aren't running, he said, Sue is just old and retiring. Bev knows she can't win due to North Carolina's swing to the right in the past 4 years.
That's interesting, and I want to ask you about that. What do you think about the whole the swing to the right? I mean, with Obama, especially now, I don't really know if he can take North Carolina, and I wonder, what do you think about that?
Well, in 2010, North Carolina definitely took a major swing to the right.
Right.
For the first time in 100 years, Republicans have ruled the North Carolina legislature. And I do believe that this election, it will continue that swing. I hope it does, personally.
Bet you do. Faith, hope, and politics.
So,
Well, Anthony, I want to ask you. Yes. I mean, how do you feel about the state perhaps going away from a more moderate Democrat rule?
Well, I'm not convinced that that's going to happen again in 2012. But I think that there are a number of middle class and lower middle class folk who are feeling the sting of the change in the tone of politics in North Carolina. And I'm hoping that that's going to be a motivator for people to get out and be involved, get engaged, whatever side of the issue you're on, be engaged about it. And I think that's the message we've got to get out. We've got to make sure there's a very, very strong, very high turnout and participation in this election coming up so that we can ensure that whatever outcome it is truly representative of the people. And it's not clear to me that that's happened over the last term, that truly the middle class has been well represented, or that, for that matter, the lower middle class has been well represented. And I think that's going to be a challenge for us because, when we start to look at how the distribution of wealth in our country has changed over the years, and I know this is a sort of a controversial position on this issue, but the fact of the matter is that if we continue to have people become poorer and poorer, then it's going to continue to drain on the systems that we are inclined to stop supporting. So we've got to find ways of being able to encourage people to continue to be entrepreneurs. We've got to encourage people to continue to be engaged in the employment process. Don't stop looking for a job. We've got to make sure there are jobs available for people. And we've got to ensure that folks are being given a fair shot.
Right. Okay. Well, I think that's a positive note to end that conversation on. And I'm going to switch to yet another kind of controversial subject, which is gay rights in Charlotte. I mean, there are things happening statewide. There are things happening locally. One of the biggest things that happened was a openly gay music director at St. Gabriel Catholic Church here in South Charlotte was fired when it came out that he got married to his longtime partner. And the thing about it, he's been a music director there for a long time, and he was openly gay, from what the reports have said, openly gay for a long time, and he had a partner who would be in church with him for a long time. But him getting married, I guess, was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Catholic Church, and St. Gabriel got rid of him. And I want to start with you, Matt, since you deal with these issues at Campus Pride and before that at Q Notes. What are your thoughts about just the whole situation?
I think that in this particular case with Steve Congdon, as you mentioned, his employer, the Catholic Church, and his fellow parishioners knew that he was gay. They knew his longtime partner. It's a really problematic doctrine, I think, when you tell someone that they can be around, they can live with you, they can work for you, as long as they keep quiet. I mean, this don't ask, don't tell type policy that the Catholic Church has doesn't benefit anybody, really. It certainly didn't benefit Steve and his partner. And I think it sends the wrong message to young people, whether we're talking about middle school or high school students or even college students. St. Gabriel's has some 10,000 members. There's a lot of young people at the church, and I guarantee you there are young people there who identify as gay and lesbian.
Right.
And they're being told by the church, you can live in sin, but just do it quietly. We don't want to hear from you. How does a young person feel when they're basically told by these priests and a church hierarchy that they have to live in the closet?
Right. Madeline, I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think it's hypocritical for the church to have accepted his relationship all these years, but when he actually gets legally married, then it's a problem? Is that hypocritical?
Well, I definitely don't believe this is really an issue of whether homosexuality is right or wrong. I think this is an issue of if the Catholic Church disagrees with homosexuality, they shouldn't have hired him in the first place.
Yeah.
And to let him work there for 5 years and then he just makes it public and then fire him, it's not right. I mean, then you get to the point of, well, what are they going to do now? This is not a situation the state needs to get involved. This is the Catholic Church decision, and that's kind of the bottom line.
Well, I find it interesting. I went to Catholic school most of my life, actually, and the Catholic Church has a very strange position on homosexuality, in that they sort of say it's okay if you're gay, but you can't show it. You can't, exercise your desires. So you have to keep them in, and the reason is because, well, you can't get married, and you can't get married because only a woman and man can get married. So I mean, I find that to be a very cyclical mess that they have going on there. I wonder, what are your thoughts about? Do you feel like the Catholic Church have kind of inherently created a system where, I mean, it's just a no-win situation?
Well, I think that this is a sort of a historical legacy that the church has sort of lived by. And, when you think about that, institutions like churches, religious institutions, that they don't have to follow the rule about if your sexual orientation is protected or not. So this is not a protected class for this institution. So they sort of had the latitude to do whatever they choose to do.
Right.
And the challenge that I think that we as individuals have is to decide, each of us individually, whether or not we agree with that or not.
Yeah.
And it's my position that if, in fact, you are going to allow a person to be employed with you and you understand that their sexual orientation has nothing to do with their duties as they're under their employment,
Right.
then whether or not they're married or not shouldn't have anything to do with their duties of employment as well.
Right.
So I think it's sort of not hypocritical necessarily, but it's certainly inconsistent that they would use this as a basis for termination.
Okay. Jarvis, I'm going to cut you off real quick, and then we're going to come right back to you. Jarvis?
I just want to share a couple of tweets from our followers on the issue. We asked if they felt the church was right or wrong in firing the gay music director. At El Burrito Bandit said, the church is free to do what it wants, like any employer. Violate the policy equals fired. I hate the decision, but their call. And at Orange Chuck took a different perspective and said, very wrong. Who are we to judge people's heart when it doesn't hurt others? And if gay marriage hurts you, you have issues. So our first tweeter looked at it from a employer policy standpoint, whereas the second looked at it from more of a moral standpoint. And a quick thing, slight shameless plug on my Grown People Talking blog. I actually blogged a few months ago when Rachel Maddow on the Rachel Maddow show on MSNBC dedicated most of her hour to how several states around the country are doing what she says, attacking inalienable rights such as marriage, the pro-choice right to conception and everything. But one thing I want to remind people is that to tie into an earlier topic, the election, this year North Carolina will be deciding in the primary whether to put a constitutional ban on the ballot. So it'll be very important for people to go out at the May 8th primary and decide if you want to even put, allow the citizens to decide whether or not we want a constitutional ban on the fall ballot. But that first starts with you deciding in the May 8th primary.
All right. I want to go back to you, Matt.
You know, we were talking a little bit about employment law. Employment law doesn't include sexual orientation, but specifically with the Catholic Church, they have a different type of law to uphold, and it's God's law, and it's the gospel. And the very meaning of gospel is good news and inclusion. And I think that it is, to answer your earlier question, it is somewhat hypocritical for the church to treat gay people in this way, especially when Jesus opened his arms with radical love and acceptance for the most marginalized people in society. And today, gay and lesbian people are among some of the people who are most marginalized under our current body of law.
Madeline, I want to get your take on just how do you feel, since you write about faith, and how do you feel that faith fits into the idea of homosexuality?
Well, I do think that we may have different interpretations.
You think so?
Yes.
No way.
But, you know, that's inevitable. You're all going to have different interpretations of what the Bible says. But at the end of the day, I'm not here to judge other people. I'm not going to judge other people. I kind of come from the standpoint that the government really shouldn't be involved.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Okay.
of course, I never agree with bullying or anything like that. But
That's cool. All right. Well, that was great. Thank you guys very much. And we'll look for updates on all these situations. I look forward to CIAA.
Great.
And thank you, folks, for joining us for another episode of 282. Go to Twitter and leave us some comments if any of this stuff has made you upset or happy. All right? I'm Carlton. Thanks again. See you next week.